You know you're on the wrong side when even the whoopee cushion on The View is speaking common sense on the issue. How could you mess things up this badly? This should have been so simple for Roger Goodell in the NFL. All you had to do was nothing. All you had to do was exercise your right to remain silent. Not that hard to do. Here, Roger Goodell, let KC show you how it's done. All you do is this. That's it. There was no NFL response needed to the speech given by Harrison Butker last weekend. But you see, this is what happens when you value diversity, equity, and inclusion over common sense. This is what happens when you allow your league to be 100% infected with the woke fungus. If this same response happened in the NBA, ratings would decline 10, maybe even 20%. But for some reason, the NFL has proven time and time again to be immune from the consequences, which is probably why the league is not afraid to flaunt their wokeness. They are not afraid to preach the good word and spread the woke faith. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. And if you want to support the channel, link for channel memberships in the description below. We launched the private Discord server earlier today. We got a nice little group on there already. Eventually, the Discord group, it's going to be available to Deacon members only. But for now, all members are invited to join our community on Discord. So sign up for memberships today and come on and join us. Last weekend, Harrison Butker, the legendary kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, or as they are called by parishioners at Woke United Methodist, the Guardians. Last weekend, Harrison Butker, he gave a commencement speech at something called Benedectine College or Benedictine College. It is a small school in Kansas. It's a Catholic school, and with Harrison Butker being a devout Catholic, he was chosen to give the commencement speech during graduation last weekend to provide some final words of wisdom to these young men and women. I have watched this speech several times since last weekend. Initially, I was planning on covering this on Monday, but to be perfectly honest with you, I could not find enough interest. And the reason I couldn't find the interest is because nothing Harrison Butker said was out of the ordinary. If you're watching this speech, the wisdom provided by Harrison Butker, it's the same wisdom that you were given by your parents growing up. But for some reason, the mainstream media, they were highly offended by this speech. And for days, I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand what the media, along with deacons at Woke United Methodist, I could not understand why they were so offended. I didn't understand the outrage until I utilized the services of my woke cat. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to grab your woke hats and apply them as we watch this speech so we can empathize with the wanker spankers and express our fake outrage. Roll the film.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. Our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to her teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
How dare he criticize our fearless leader, John Biden. I cannot believe he mentioned gender ideology. Does he not realize how important the choice of gender is for America's youth? Selecting gender is just as important as selecting your institution of higher indoctrination. The NFL should fire this male identifier. The media is also upset because Harrison Butker had the audacity to share his own personal experiences. At one point during the speech, he spoke about his lovely wife. He shared about how they met in middle school. I believe it was like middle school band or something. He got emotional when explaining how much his wife has meant to him and his success. Now, everything was fine until he made a startling revelation. Harrison Butker said something to the effect of, "I'm allowed to have my success because my wife embraced the most important job of all, homemaker." Well. That sounds like white Christian nationalism to me. That sounds like a traditional marriage. Traditional marriage, it is a direct violation of the woke commandments, unless, of course, the homemaking wife is married to Barbara Bulldozer. Obviously. The woke media, they were mortified by these remarks. And the reason the media is mortified is because Harrison Butker spread their biggest allergen, the truth. Women have never represented a larger portion of the workforce than they do today. Women are CEOs, women are managers. We see women in the NFL and NBA working as officials, a job that requires a hell of a lot of travel, which means for the majority of the season, those women, they are away from their children, they're away from their families. Women have never had more financial independence than they have today. All my women independent, why are we so unhappy? Happiness amongst women has been on a steady decline for the last 50 years. Why? Why do you think that is? Deacons at Woke United Methodist, they will blame toxic masculinity. Men are to blame for the unhappiness of women. Now, of course, that's complete bullshit. Sure, some men are to blame for a woman's unhappiness, but there's a simple solution to that problem. Choose a better man. Maybe we are seeing more and more women unhappy because they're stressed. Maybe women are unhappy because they are having to spend 40, 50, 60 hours every week away from their families. Just something to think about. Harrison Butker, he gave this speech last weekend. The NFL, they waited 5 days to issue their unnecessary response. The NFL gave this responsibility to Jonathan Bean. Well, Casey, who in the hell is Jonathan Bean? He's a high-ranking executive in the National Football League. Is he responsible for making the schedule? No. Johnny is far too powerful, far too busy to be worrying himself with something as meaningless as the schedule for the regular season. Johnny Bean is responsible for focusing on the really important issues in the NFL. His official job title is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. If equity is Johnny's primary focus, he is failing miserably at his job. Last I checked, black players filled 65, maybe 70% of the roster spots in the NFL. That doesn't sound very equitable to me. That doesn't sound very inclusive. If the NFL was truly dedicated to equity, shouldn't we have equal representation of all races and genders? Every Sunday afternoon from September through early January, I spend 7 hours watching commercial-free football on NFL Red Zone. You know how many women I saw last season playing in NFL games? You know how many female quarterbacks, female edge rushers that I saw? None. Clearly, Johnny Bean's got a lot of work to do. But instead of focusing on true equity in the NFL, Johnny, He is focused on distancing the league from Harrison Butker and his common sense. The NFL issued a statement condemning Harrison Butker. The NFL does not agree with these archaic, traditionalist views. The NFL is committed to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. What the hell are you talking about? All the NFL did with that statement was prove Harrison Butker right. During his speech, he told these young men and women that deacons at Woke United Methodist pressure them into silence unless they are following the guidelines of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The NFL puts out a statement which basically reinforces that point. This should have been so simple. All the NFL had to do was remain silent. Now, you might be wondering, if that's the case, why didn't they just ignore it? Well, they did ignore this speech for 5 days. For 120 hours, the NFL acted like this speech never happened. They said nothing. But then the mainstream media, they piled on the pressure. There was a petition at change.org signed by over 125,000 people pressuring the NFL to respond. If they felt the need to respond, if they felt they needed pressure, they were experiencing pressure, if they needed some ideas on how to respond, all Roger Goodell had to do was watch the Yentas on The View. I know that sounds ridiculous. I know that might be shocking, but the lovely women on The View, they had a better response to this than the NFL did. Earlier this morning, the Whoopi cushion, she took a much-needed break from hiking her leg and feeling the already warm air with her boodle breeze. The Whoopi cushion took a much-needed break from spreading propaganda to speak common sense. Even the lonely women in the audience were surprised by the comments from the Whoopi cushion. Listen to her response to Harrison Butker. Now imagine for a second that the NFL issued a similar statement. You tell me if there would be outrage towards the NFL from normal people if they chose to respond like this. Watch for yourself.
I like when people say what they need to say. He's at a Catholic college. Yeah. He's a staunch Catholic. These are his beliefs, and he's welcome to them. I don't have to believe him.
Right.
I don't have to accept them. The ladies that were sitting in that audience do not have to accept him. The same way we want respect when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee.
Right.
We want to give respect to people whose ideas are different from ours, because the man who says he wants to be president, you know who?
Yeah.
He says the way to act is to take away people's right to say how they feel. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be those people.
This was a near perfect response from Whoopi Goldberg. She almost did it. She almost went a full minute containing her symptoms of stage 4 OMB. Oh, she went bad. She just couldn't help herself. She had to find a way to inject Donald Trump into a conversation that had absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. The Whoopi cushion claimed that Donald Trump wants to silence dissenting voices. Now, I have yet to see proof of that accusation, and of course, Whoopi Goldberg doesn't provide any evidence. But other than that, this was a near perfect response from Whoopi Goldberg. Is it really that hard to respect Harrison Butker's right to speak, or anyone for that matter? You don't have to agree with him. The kids in the audience that day, if they were so upset with what he was saying, all they had to do was get up and leave. I don't agree with just about anything that I see on CNN. We have been covering The View for years. 99% of the time, I disagree with just about everything they're saying. That doesn't mean I want them silenced. That doesn't mean I want ABC to publicly distance themselves from the Yentas. If The View was canceled tomorrow, there would probably be celebrations throughout the country. But if they're not canceled, no one cares. If you don't want to watch The View, don't watch ABC at 9 o'clock in the morning. The truth is, the NFL once again folded to the pressure. All they had to do was exercise their right to remain silent. Instead, they end up doubling their contribution to Woke United Methodist. And as a result, They pissed off a lot of their fan base. Will this have a negative impact on the NFL in the regular season in terms of ratings? Of course not. By the time the regular season starts, this will all be forgotten. And no, the NFL is not going to fine or suspend Harrison Butker. Had a lot of you guys reach out to me asking me that today. No, it's not going to happen. But give me your thoughts on this. Harrison Butker delivers a commencement speech rooted in common sense. Deacons at Woke United Methodist are outraged. They petition the NFL to respond and distance the league from Harrison Butker. In the NFL, they display their weakness and acquiesce to these demands. Will this have a negative impact on the NFL? What did you think of Harrison Butker's speech? Also, what did you think of Whoopi Goldberg defending Harrison Butker? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.